Greetings YouTube, welcome back to the MetaNerd channel. I am Marcus, bringing you another video for Cardfight Vanguard Overdress. In this video, of course, we're gonna go through the card support for the golden boy of Cater Sanctuary, Bastion. First card, we have a Blitz Order, Sublime Will. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, choose one of your Vanguard and it gets 20k until the end of that battle, including the Guardian Circle. Now, of course, this is a Blitz Order and naturally, this is a defensive support. This card will require you to have at least 2 grade 3 rearguards to work or 1 grade 3 unit in the Guardian Circle since the Blitz Order himself does not count as a unit, plus Blitz Order does not go to the Guardian Circle. This is the particular requirement for Sublime Will to work. This card is also a possible replacement to Kokabil. Kokabil, is that how you pronounce? I'm not sure. But the difference between these two cards is that Kokabil will have lesser shield as compared to Sublime Will because Sublime Will is 20k straight out the gate. Kokabil will not be able to have that much shield value in terms of her skill, but she's able to guard and attack to your own rearguard, which is quite nice. Sublime Will only gives the shield value to your Vanguard, which is Bastion, of course, but it's either you want a more flexible defensive option or a raw defensive option on the Vanguard. Next up, we have Additional Angel. Active rearguard circle, cost Soul Blast 1. Put this unit into your damage zone. Choose a face-up grade 3 card from your damage zone and call it to rearguard. Yeah, so this is basically a utility support. She basically exchanges herself with a grade 3 unit from the damage zone to superior call. Means it's a 1-for-1 trade, and it kind of opens up your damage zone as a secondary hand so that you are able to superior call some of the grade 3s, for example Alden, Falsado, and so on and so on. So yeah, she's not really the most groundbreaking support that Bastion will have. It's maybe just a budget option for budget players. Next, we have Heavenly Blade of Magnificence, Bestida. Auto, when this card is discarded from your hand during your turn, counterblast 2, soul blast 1. Choose one column and your opponent put all of their rearguards in that same column on the bottom of their deck in any order. So yeah, this card is quite similar to that one order, which is this card. But instead of Counterblast 2 and Soul Blast 1, you will only need to Soul Blast 1 grade 3 in order to have that column control. Bestida is a much heavier cost since he costs an additional 2 Counterblast. Next up, we have Heavenly Staff of Kind Intention, Cortese. Although, when your dry check reveal this card, you may call this card to an open rearguard circle. If you do, this unit gets a boost until the end of turn. So yeah, this is a much more offensive support, but it's not a really reliable skill because it's basically depends on your RNG. You will need to drive check into this card, only then you will be able to call this card to an open rearguard. So you can't really make an extra attack off her, but the good thing is you're able to apply a very deadly aggression, and what's more, you are able to put her in the back row since she will get the boost skill. This card is quite good and might throw your opponent off a little bit, but then this is still an RNG skill. It's not going to be the most groundbreaking skill, and do keep in mind it's a -1 from your hand. Next up, we have another normal order card, Form Up O Chosen Knights. You play this card by performing Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and depending on the number of your grade 3 units, you are able to activate each and every skill. If you have 2 or more grade 3 units, choose one unit and that unit will gain 5k power until the end of turn. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, you draw a card. If you have 4 or more, choose one of your Vanguard and it gains drive +1 until the end of turn. So yeah, this is your offensive support. He does requires you to have a board setup before using this card since you will have the number of grade 3 units requirement. Of course, the grade 3 requirements here does include the Vanguard. So if you are in Bastion, you are required to have at least 3 other grade 3 rearguards in order to activate the full skill of this card. The most important activation out of all the 3 skills here is actually the +1 drive, because it gives you the consistency of activating Bastion skill as well as increasing the chance of you drive checking into the over trigger, which is very, very nice and very, very scary for your opponent. This is, I would say, the most important MVP in the whole DBT02 for Bastion. You should really get this card. It's only an R. Do get this card when this booster is out, even if you're a budget player. Next up, we have the double R for Bastion, Soaring Dragon, Prideful Dragon. They really need to have a better name, otherwise something dragon, not the best name. Auto rearguard. When this unit attacks, if you have 4 or more grade 3 rearguards, counterblast 1 and soul blast 1 and draw a card. If you persona ride this turn, you may have this unit gets 5k plus 1 crit until the end of turn instead of drawing the card. So yeah, your utility slash offensive support, you can either have a defensive draw or apply offensive pressure by either you draw 1 or you basically plus 5k and the crit, which is very scary in some sense. You are able to activate this skill twice if you restand Prideful Dragon with Bastion, of course, but you still need to pay that 1 counterblast and 1 soul blast. So this card is quite deadly in some builds, and I will talk about later down in this video about the variants that you are able to run with Bastion after DBT02. Lastly, we have the triple R, Heavenly Bow of Edifying Guidance, Refuerzos? I'm just gonna call him Ralphie. He has 2 skill, continuous rearguard circle. If you personal ride this turn, this unit gets boost. Auto, back row rearguard, once per turn. When your other units stand by a card's effect, you can stand this unit. So yeah, you're sort of like offensive unit, I would say. He himself does not really do anything as an attacker, but he's able to kind of maintain the power of an attacking column since he's able to restand himself once something in the front row in front of him is restand by using Bastion skill. So at the minimum, that column will be attacking for 30k. If you include Bastion's power up, of course, the first time that column attack with Ralphie is going to be at 30k, and the second time that the column attacks is going to be at 40k at the minimum. This card does go really well with Dark Strain in the early game, of course, since he himself is free cost. And Dark Strain, of course, you need to pay 2 soul blasts, and every single grade 3 on the board is able to boost. And yeah, so this card does pays really well. Of course, he does need the personal right in order to get the boost. However, the first skill is available with Dark Strain, and yeah, the value that this card gives Bastion is actually very nice. And of course, in the late game where your resources kind of dry out a little bit, this card, of course, if you do personal right, this card is a very good supporter for any of your columns that you want to restand. Now, in this section, I'm just gonna go through some of the variant that we have for Bastion. And of course, the first one is we're gonna have the Dark Strain build, as previously mentioned, is basically your standard way of playing Bastion. Of course, all 3 builds that I'm going to discuss here is basically playing the standard Bastion with some difference in terms of attack pattern as well as playstyle. The next build, of course, is the control build, where you kind of like abuse this order as well as some other cards that actually keep on returning your opponent's rearguard to the bottom deck. And lastly, of course, is the Prideful Dragon, which I call Final Rush build. So of course, there are staplers for all these variants, and by now Bastion players should know what are the staplers for Bastion. Of course, we have the usual Alden as well as Fossado, the main 2 attacker for Bastion as well as some resource. The next one, of course, we have is Reflux. Reflux is kind of like the hidden MVP for Bastion because he himself goes to the soul and choose something to plus 10, and you can abuse this and have a very devastating pushing turn, as well as of course unlocking the control build order with this card. Since he is a grade 3 and that control order needs to soul blast a grade 3, he himself is very good. Next, of course, the new stapler card that joins all of this Hall of Fame is of course the new order, which gave your Vanguard +1 drive. This card will definitely be a stapler until maybe a new card that actually functions better than this card. And then of course lastly is Kokabil. Kokabil of course is a little bit situational, because if your opponent is a deck that actually retires a lot, then this card will fall out of value. But same goes to the other Blitz order, that Sublime Will. So yeah. Okay, so for the Dark Strain build, this is basically the standard variant of Bastion by abusing Dark Strain every single turn. This build is the most consistent out of all 3 builds, meaning you just need your grade 3 rearguards on the field and then you start whacking your opponent until one of you loses. It provides a lot of pushing power. With all of your attacks, at the minimum is gonna generate at least 30k power, and they're just gonna pile up the damage from there. There is one notable weakness for this variant, is that the Dark Strain variant does rely on Fossado attacking hit, because Darkstrain does requires you to have Soul in order to use him every single turn. You do have stuff that actually helps you Soul charge, one being Fossado and the other one being Reflux, and of course, Fossado does need to attack hit in order to Soul charge and as well as counter charge. This variant really wants Fossado to attack hit in order to abuse Darkstrain skill every other turn. This variant is recommended for newer players that actually just came into Vanguard and just started playing. Bastion as a general is a very easy deck to play and is very easy to pilot. This build in particular is the easiest out of all the 3 builds, and it is also the most consistent one. Next is the control variant, where this variant is the most defensive out of all 3 builds. While this variant still plays like a standard Bastion, which will kind of abuse Alden as well as Painkiller Angel for the draw power, you actually have the option to have some field control and basically cripple the opponent. This build is very nice. It's a more flexible as well as technical build for more technical players, and usually this variant has a bigger hand because of how defensive this variant plays. The rearguard's attacking power is still quite consistent. However, the power might not be as high as the Darkstrain variant. Lastly, we have the Final Rush variant, and as the name suggests, this variant is the most dangerous out of all the 3 builds. This card has its name Final Rush variant is because this variant will have a very scary personal right turn because of Prideful Dragon here. You rely on the 4th turn, and once you reach your 4th turn and you personal right, you basically call 2 Prideful Dragon to the front and you call Ralphie to one of 2 the back, and basically the other 2 cards, it's up to you. And from there you just keep on hitting with 2 crits for 3 times maybe. It's really scary. And if you think you are not able to basically end your opponent, you can go for the draw and basically revert to a much more defensive turn. But even with that defensive turn, the power is still insane. This variant does somewhat rely on Fossado to hit, because after the 4th turn, you might not really have a resource to go for a 5th turn or a 6th, because most of your resources are gonna spend in the 4th turn with the 2 Prideful Dragon. This variant also does requires you to have a really high resource management skills, because each and every resources that you spent may not necessarily be refunded that quickly. I recommend this variant for a much more experienced player, because a new player will just kind of die because of the resource management that this deck requires you to have. But overall, this is one of the variant that is very interesting to see and will possibly make Bastion one of the most dangerous decks out there at the moment. And that is all for this video. Do let me know down in the comment section of what do you think of the support for Bastion, and what are the variants that you think is the best among all 3 of them. Do like and subscribe if you like this video, and don't forget to ring the bell notification icon so that you don't miss a video I upload. With that being said, I'll see you all on the field.